Good evening and welcome to Surrey Police Live. I hope you are all doing really well. We are coming to you from Mount Brown, our headquarters here in Surrey, and you are very, very welcome. So what is Surrey Police Live? Well, this is a weekly show that's going to be coming live on Facebook and YouTube every Thursday from 6 until 7, and it's an opportunity for you to lift the lid on the force, to understand a little bit about what policing in Surrey looks like. We're going to have some amazing guests and features all the way through, and you can see a couple there who are sitting ready and waiting. I'll be introducing them in just a second. You'll be learning more about our work and the different types of crime that we face across the county. So who am I? Well, my name is Jay, and I'm the Digital Communications Manager here for Surrey Police, and tonight I'm going to be your host. We have got a whole host of stuff that's coming today, but the first thing that I want to say is we are very aware we've had some operational issues that have meant that one of our guests is going to be joining us hopefully a little bit later. She is on her way, but at the moment we are very aware that we are slightly male and slightly pale. So please bear in mind that we've got some operational activity going on. We have response officers who are needing to attend jobs even while this is happening. So Alicia PC Lockyer is going to be on her way and should be joining us shortly. So Surrey Police Live is going to be here for the next 10 weeks, as I say, on a Thursday between 6 and 7. This is part of our first season. This is the first time we're doing this, and we're hoping that it's going to be a really exciting time and opportunity and sort of programme around what we're doing. We're going to take a break over the summer, take a little bit of a review. We're going to be listening to what you guys are feeding back to us, whether it was good, what didn't work, what you would really like to see from us, all of those sorts of things. We've got a bit of a plan about what's coming up, and we'll show you that in a moment. But we will be hopefully then returning for season 2 in the autumn. So we'll be here for the next 10 weeks, every Thursday, 6 until 7. And as I say, we do want to hear from you. We genuinely do. We want to hear if you've got questions for the panel based on the theme of the evening. You can pop them in the chat section below, whether you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook. Pop your questions and your comments in the chat below. We've got people monitoring those, and they're going to come straight through to me on this tablet so that I can then put them to our guests. If we don't get through every question in the hour, we will genuinely do as many as we possibly can. But if we don't get through all of them within the hour, we will be responding to them later. So I mentioned before about what we've got coming up over the next few weeks. Let me show you. So over the next couple of weeks or so, we have got tonight, we're looking at local policing. Next week, we're going to be talking about domestic abuse. Over the course of the lockdown period, we've really seen a significant spike in terms of domestic abuse. And of course, we've got the Euros coming as well. So that's next Thursday. Then we're going to look at something called the journey of your call. What happens when you get in contact with Surrey Police, either through 999 or online, through our Digital 101 service, through direct message on Facebook or on Twitter, for example, or live chat on our website. At the beginning of July, we're going to be looking at our volunteers. We've just come out of Volunteers Week over the last half term, and that was an amazing period of time that we've had some wonderful stories of people who have been volunteering over the course of the last pandemic, over the last year during the pandemic. And then, as I say, there on the 8th of July, we've got road safety and our roads policing team, and a little look behind what is going on. Now, just before we go to our guests and we start to talk about local policing, we just wanted to share with you some really good news. So we're going to show you a short video in a moment of a pursuit. This actually happened in 2018, and this is one of the things I think we wanted to kind of highlight, was how long actually the journey of justice can take. So what we're about to see is a pursuit throughout Surrey, starting in Farnham, doing a long loop up to the M25 and back down in towards Surrey Heath. And I'll come back to you with some more details about what has happened after that. So hopefully we'll have a chance to watch this now.
Just confirm location. Northbound to 8 Street, Way Lane. At this time, traffic moderate. Risk is moderate.
The vehicle heading north just past Clay Lane A3. Confirmed vehicle.
Yeah, also, I'm just finding the intel. I'll be on there very shortly. Thank you. It's just approaching the junction with the M25 now. At speed, he nearly lost it there. He's not the first exit onto the M25. Okay, he's onto the M25 northbound now. M25 northbound at junction 10.
Oscar Foxtrot 42, Megan from 12 to 11.
Yes, apologies. Tango Whiskey 44 is your current location.
Yeah, 4-3, we're just a mile from junction 11.
HJ is...
Yes, yes, Impact.
HJ is using the hard shoulder. He nearly hit a car that was parked on the hard shoulder. Risk is probably high at the moment. Okay, he's off the M25 onto the M3 now. He's committed onto the M3 and it's going to be westbound on the M3. M3 now westbound, straight through a red light. Still continues, A322 northbound.
Off 8:30.
Right, left. He's in the estate, which is a dead end. It's going to be a decamp. It's a decamp. Lorry Ridge.
Yeah, they're decamp. Listen to helicopter over.
Okay. The male sat on the barrier. It was the passenger of the vehicle, front seat passenger. The one just being put into the police car is the driver. Over.
Yes, all accounted for. Come to a complete stop. Vehicle and persons get detained and dealt with them.
That's 4-5 standing down.
Great stuff. So amazing. Thank you for playing that. And as I said, that incident took place 3 years ago in August of 2018. And this week on the 4th of May, so almost 3 years later, Mohammed Mia of 24 of Southern Road, Newham in London was sentenced to 12 months imprisonment. He was disqualified from driving for 18 months and he was ordered to pay a victim surcharge of £140 after that pursuit. And I think it shows how incredibly well trained our officers are in terms of being able to deal with that pursuit with no one else being injured. A few moments there where he managed to evade police capture, I suppose, but we pursued him and we made sure that we were keeping the roads and Surrey safe, and that's what we are here to do. So that was great. So, and you can also see that we were working very closely with our colleagues in NPAS, the police air service, who were following him in the helicopter, which is fantastic. So that's a little bit of good news, what we've seen this week, which is fantastic and is what we're all here to do and keeps us happy and excited. And we're going to start to talk a little bit about local policing tonight. And I'm joined tonight by Inspector John Vale, who is the Borough Commander for Epsom and Ewell. And we're going to come to him first of all, but he's also joined by Superintendent Graham Barnett, who works within our Operations Command world, which is a collaborated world with our colleagues in Sussex Police south of the border, which is really exciting. We've had a busy few days and weeks in Epsom, haven't we? We'll come to that in a little bit, but we'll just want to bring up a graphic now, which will help you to understand how we break down policing in Surrey. So we break it down through the 11 boroughs and districts. These are all the local authority areas, and each borough and district has a borough commander who is of inspector rank. And they have overall oversight of a couple of teams there that have specific responsibilities. So we have our Safer Neighbourhood team that kind of looks at some of the long-term problem-solving, community relational side of things. They're known as the SNT internally. We do love a TLA, that's a three-letter acronym. We do love a TLA in policing. And we also have our neighbourhood policing team, which some of you may know a little bit more as sort of a response team. Those are the officers who are dealing with the 999 and our responses. Just to give a bit of a context for what's happened in May, and that will hopefully help drive some of the questions and some of the information that John will start to share about. So in May, we had 12,500 emergency contacts, 999 calls, or calls that have come into us through another route but have been deemed as being an emergency. We had 25,000 non-emergency contacts. And out of all of that contact, we knew that there were about 24,500 incidents that required us recording them on our systems. 3,000 of those are grade 1, and a grade 1 is how we would term and determine an emergency response. And so that's when you see the blues and twos going off down the road. So John, coming over to yourself, would you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about your background, and that'll be great. It'd be good to hear from you.
Thanks, Jay. Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm John Vale. I'm the Borough Inspector or Borough Commander for Epsom and Ewell. As Jay's alluded to, we've recently had the Epsom Derby, so it's been a very busy period for us. Just in terms of my background, I've been with Surrey Police now for 10 years. It's flown by. It's been a really good 10 years. Started off as a volunteer, as a special constable, and progressed my way on to becoming a regular officer. And have worked hard and become a borough commander now. So yeah, really good job, really enjoying it, and a great team as well. And
you're relatively new to the borough commander role. You've been in post for...
I've been in post now for roughly a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I was at Tandridge Neighbourhoods as a Safer Neighbourhood Team Sergeant, and prior to that, I was a response officer. So
amazing. So covering all bases there, which is great. And can you tell us a little bit about what is the role of a borough commander? Like, what is it that you do? How can the public sort of know who you are?
Yes, thank you, Jay. So the role of Borough Commander is really to oversee the Safer Neighbourhood Team and to try and almost blend that with the other police departments to be able to work efficiently, to really listen to community concerns. That's the big issue for us, and making sure that we're working well with partners to really address those concerns and identify risk early and take appropriate measures.
And when you talk about the Safer Neighbourhood Team and that side of things, what kind of roles do you find within the Safer Neighbourhood Team?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Jay. So there have been some developments in recent years, some specialisms, if you like, within the team itself. So the majority of my team is made up of NSOs, or Neighbourhood Specialist Officers, and they're police officers, and essentially their main role is day-to-day is problem solving. We also have police community support officers, so police staff, they're not police officers, but their main role is community engagement, forwarding intelligence reports, so gathering intelligence within the community and really building up those local community relations. In addition to that, we've now got youth engagement officers, a recent uplift in youth engagement officers. Really key role is getting in schools, youth clubs nice and early, identifying risk, and if children and young people are heading down a specific path, is diverting them away from that wrong path and bringing them back on track. So that's a really key role that we now have.
Cool, amazing. And the role of an NPT, the neighbourhood policing team, that's what we might understand as response, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a slightly confusing term there, but yes, NPT, Neighbourhood Patrol Team, they are the response officers. They have a very busy role and a very demanding role, and their main role is to respond to, as Jay, you've highlighted already, the priority calls. So the grade ones, the emergency calls where they're flying around safely, of course, on blue lights and sirens, down to volume crime investigations. So they will have reports that come in that are risk assessed, and that they will then have a workload which they investigate.
Great, thank you. And we're going to be joined by Alicia, who's a PC based out in Guildford. So she's hopefully on her way. She got called off to a bit of operational activity straight away. John, we've alluded to it slightly earlier. You're the Borough Commander for Epsom, and here in Surrey we have the Epsom Derby. And do you know what? Having just said that, Alicia has just walked in the door, which is wonderful. We will be coming to Alicia in a moment. Hope you're doing all right.
Okay.
You're well, brilliant, lovely to have you with us. Yes, please, that's fantastic. Proper live, see? You wouldn't know that was pre-recorded. Here she is. We do try. So, John, coming back to the Derby, it's our annual event. It's a flagship event here in Surrey. It's wonderful. It has Queen representation as well, although this year has been slightly different, hasn't it? What's been going on?
So, essentially, this year's been Derby Light. Slightly increased on last year, which was a derby behind closed doors. So we've now had 4,000 spectators attend this year. As you said, Jay, it's the most important sporting event within Surrey. One of the largest sporting events within the country. Very prestigious, internationally recognised, and incredibly important for the Epsom area specifically in terms of the local economy. Our role is really making sure that we keep everyone safe at those events.
And so your priorities within Epsom, what is it that you're looking to try and do, and how are you trying to keep, because in reality, as much as we're just talking about Epsom, it draws people, as you say, from all over the country and all over the county.
Absolutely. So the main thing is making sure that we've got enough resources, enough trained resources to be able to support that, to keep everyone safe. So the local team will play a huge part in that operation, but it is essentially about bringing in resources from elsewhere, making sure we've got the right command structure in place to keep everyone safe. So, for example, Mr. Burnett, sitting next to me here, played obviously a key role within that operation. My primary role this time around and moving forward as well will be the Epsom town, making sure that we're supporting licensed premises primarily, making sure that the people travelling to the event and on the egress as well, that they're safe, and then we're looking after that, making sure that we're supporting local businesses as well where we can.
So it's not just on the days or during the hours of the event, but it's about people coming and going as well. Yeah, lovely. Graham, going to bring you in, Superintendent Graham Barnett. So you work within our Operations Command world. Could you just explain very briefly what is Operations Command and what does it do?
So Operations Command works across Surrey Police and Sussex Police, and that deals with all the other aspects of policing, so the specialist aspects, so your firearms officers, roads policing officers, in the case of Epsom Derby, specialist drone operators and public order officers. And we bring those together with planning teams, firearms licensing teams, just to support the divisions, to support the boroughs, teams like John, with events like Epsom Derby and other events across both Surrey and Sussex.
That's amazing, thank you. And just before we get into digging into what your role was on the day, we're going to watch a little video that wrapped up some of the activity from this year's Derby. Great stuff. So a very different looking Epsom Derby this year, wasn't it, John?
Absolutely, yeah. Really, positive. It's great to see the crowds back. I think it's the first sporting event that we've had within Surrey with a crowd. So it's almost getting slightly closer back to how things were pre-pandemic. But no, a really successful event, and really pleased to see the public enjoying themselves.
Incredible. And Graham, we were talking just before we went to watch that little video about Ops Command and the events planning and that side of things. So what was your role within sort of the Derby planning, and what were some of the considerations that you had to take into mind when thinking about the Derby?
So this year was a really interesting one for me because actually I was the Silver Commander for the Derby, so I'm a trained public order and public safety commander at silver and gold level, but this year I was the Silver Commander for the Derby, and it was slightly surreal. because actually we didn't know what to expect, and that's largely due to coronavirus. But thanks to our teams, really adaptable. Our planners, we had a planning team in place, and we have one for next year already. So right from the end of one derby, we move straight into another one, and that planning starts working with event organisers, working with our partners, working with John and his team in Epsom. This one was unusual just because, as I say, we didn't know what to expect. So we ended up planning from what we had in 2019, which was essentially no event, 2020, which was no event at all, right the way up to a full event with Her Majesty the Queen, which obviously brings a number of other aspects with it when we've got protected principals and particularly Her Majesty in attendance. So we were planning for 4 scenarios at one point this year, and ultimately we ended up with what I think was a good scenario, 4,000 people able to attend. It's a shame for those that attend year in, year out that couldn't. Epsom wasn't as busy, was it? And it was slightly surreal when you looked up on the hill, which has normally got 70,000 people on it, and all I saw was a couple of helicopters and our drone operators. Very unusual, but nevertheless, we hope it's back next year. And as I already alluded to, John and I were chatting before we started tonight. We've already started the planning for next year, which hopefully won't have the restrictions. And of course, it's going to be on the same weekend as the Queen's Her Majesty's Jubilee. So we hope it'll be another good event for Epsom.
Everything coming together next year, and hopefully, yes, as we say, coming back to that new normal. So Platinum Jubilee, going to add another element to that as well. So thanks so much for taking us through some of that planning side of things. If you've got questions that you want to ask any of our panel, please make sure that you're getting them into the comments section just below, and they'll come through to me here in, I guess, our studio, which is lovely. Alicia, I'm going to come to you now. So it is a delight to have you here with us. Thank you so much. So you're an operational police constable, you work out of Guildford, and you're on shift at the moment.
I am indeed, so unfortunately that's why I was late today. I was dealing with an incident, but I've been a PC since January 2020. So it's been a very interesting time to join Surrey Police because it's been the unknown. So we're dealing with COVID and everything that's come with that in terms of COVID fines and things like that.
And in terms of joining in January of 2020, you've obviously got a period of time up here at HQ within our training school before you go out to divisions and boroughs. When was your first sort of shift out on division? Was that during the pandemic side of things, or was it just before?
It was indeed. So my first shift was just after the first lockdown, I believe. So that was when we were sort of finding our feet with what we were doing, and finding a new normal within policing, I think.
So in reality, you've only ever policed under the pandemic?
Indeed, so it's kind of a running joke within my team that we haven't actually policed a proper pub fight yet because the pubs have been shut and they're obviously now reopening and we've got the clubs opening in June. So.
Yep. Hopefully. I mean, I think everybody in the country is waiting on bated breath for announcements on Monday. No least of all you guys in terms of working out what it means for keeping our public safe.
It's certainly getting busier on the streets. We're noticing now a lot more people going out, enjoying themselves, and enjoying the weather at the moment as well.
Yeah. So your role on a day-to-day basis, so talk to me about your shift pattern. What does that normally look like for you?
So that's 2 earlies, which are 7 to 4, 2 lates, which is 3 to 1 in the morning, and then 2 nights, which are 10 to 7. So it's a rolling shift pattern, so it's always 6 shifts and then 4 days off.
So
nice.
6 on and then 4 off and round and round and round you go.
Indeed.
Excellent. And how many on your team and your rota?
So it really varies from rota to rota. I think we've got about 15 on my rota at the moment.
Cool.
We've got lots of probationers, so new people joining with our new PCDA.
Yep.
So obviously, again, a new way of policing, earning a degree, which is good.
So PCDA is the Police Constable Degree Entry Route, which is a new route into policing that was launched, I think it was about a year ago. But if I'm entirely honest, my sense of time over this past year has been thrown into kilter a little bit. So that's a new way of going, and we will be picking some of that up because we're going to be recruiting and opening our recruitment window in the middle of July. Get the dates right, Jay. Middle of July, and we will be doing one of these Surrey Police Lives on sort of all the recruitment side of things, and we'll dig into the role of PC a little bit more at that point as well, which is going to be really good. So questions that are coming in, guys. I think we'll start to move into that sort of period of time, some of the questions that might be coming in. So for those of us who are watching, please do make sure that you're getting your questions in. We've got a couple of questions here, one from Sophie Porritt on Facebook. So she'd be interested to hear views on the benefits and challenges that social media has brought to modern day local policing. Possibly I might come to John and to Alicia on this, if that's all right. Is it considered a useful tool to gain another insight into local community concerns that are perhaps not formally reported? Or is it difficult, I suppose? Is there a challenge that comes with it, with people having cameras on their phones and possibly trying to get a response out of people, or not even helping PCs that might be needing assistance and standing around and kind of filming things? What were your thoughts? John, maybe come to you first.
Thanks, Jay. So social media is a really, really useful tool for us, especially in local policing and in the safer neighbourhood team arena. We use social media on a daily basis to reach out to communities, to pass significant messages and to ask for help in terms of various appeals for different offences that may have taken place. But you know, in a few minutes you can reach many thousands of people, reach updates, pass updates to many thousands of people, and the feedback that we have from the public is absolutely huge, and we've had some really, really good success out of social media use. One of the key points for me is that we don't solely rely on social media and other advances in technology, because there's a whole tranche of the community who don't necessarily use social media, and we don't want to be left behind. So we need to also bear in mind we are keeping a close eye on other means of engagement as well.
Yep, great. Alicia, what are your thoughts?
Something I'm acutely aware of, which I didn't know in the past, that we're now receiving sort of reports of crime via social media. So our colleagues in the FCR are dispatching us to things via social media. So we're getting sort of messages in via Facebook and Twitter, which I believe is a great way of reaching the community and ensuring that things, as Sophie said, are reported still.
And it's really important, isn't it? Because in reality, you can do banking through social media, you can access them through your app, you can buy all sorts of things. I mean, I've seen people sort of, and I do it myself, buying my groceries now and chatting to people about complaints that I have about a broken set of eggs or a milk bottle that's spilt or whatever. So why wouldn't we want to try and make sure that in the 21st century we're able to do that and engage with the public through social as well? I think it's a really, really important one. You're absolutely right. We've got a question from Rebecca Channing, who's watching on YouTube. Graham, this might be one that you might be able to answer. It's Ops Command, it's RPU, but if you're not able to, then we'll come back to you, Rebecca, on it. But she's seen some new Fords being used by us. Are they new response cars? Do you know anything about fleet, and can you provide a little bit of insight into that? And if you can't, do not worry, we will come back to Rebecca on it.
It's not my area of expertise.
Absolutely fine.
New Fords will probably actually sit with our response teams.
Right.
My teams, road policing, firearms teams, tend to drive the Volvos, the BMWs. So I imagine the Fords will sit with the response teams.
I believe they're coming to us eventually.
Okay, cool. So they are rolling out at the moment, and we'll see where they go. I know that we've just had some new automatic vehicles as well coming out as well. So
and a lot more electric vehicles as well, of course, which can only be a good thing.
And it's really important from our own environmental standards. We're maintaining, like the Chief is particularly passionate about making sure that we're cutting our carbon emissions, and absolutely where it's possible to do that from an emissions point of view, it's really good. So Rebecca, we will, there's been a small answer there, but hopefully we will come back to you after this with a bit more detailed answer as well. So I hope you can wait and we'll come back to you on that. Handyman, not sure if that is his real name or not, but there we go. This is going to be a challenge for us with pseudonyms and things like that coming out. But Handyman on Facebook is asking why people in London can ride electric scooters, but not in Epsom or Leatherhead. John, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that question. So e-scooters, they're a relatively new scenario, I would guess, on our streets, and they're becoming much more common. And I understand that they are quite controversial as well. I think that certainly I've seen a rising number of complaints within the Epsom area about the use of e-scooters. I know that in London, for example, and select other cities within the UK, they are running trials with e-scooters. So currently, under legislation, e-scooters are covered in the same way that cars would be. So to ride an e-scooter, you need to have a driving licence and insurance, and clearly you can't do that on an e-scooter because you've got no number plates, etc. etc. But unless of course you're taking part in a trial, several London boroughs I understand are running trials at the moment, and there's several other cities around the UK are. Clearly there is a future role for this mode of transport. It's environmentally friendly, it's convenient, but at the same time we need to make sure that people are safe using them. And there needs to be proper regulation. So I understand that there is some community tension at the moment in relation to their use. It's something that we are paying some close attention to.
And I think it's really important that it's widely understood that in Surrey, unless you're using an e-scooter on private property, you cannot use it in a public space. I think that's a really important message to get across, and that's equally to those who might be wanting to use it, but also sort of considering when we're buying them, whereabouts are we actually likely to be able to use them at this moment in time. So in Surrey, it is not legal. If officers are in and around and available and see people on that, they will be taking them aside. They will be having conversations. In reality, I suppose they have the power to actually seize the vehicle. Really, it is a vehicle, isn't it? So they have that power, and they will certainly be having discussions with that. Alicia, have you had any e-scooter?
I haven't, but we are noticing that a lot of younger people as well, it's worth mentioning. I think there's a real lack of understanding. I was having a conversation with some younger relatives, and they're like, well, we really want one because their friends have got them, and there is, a lack of understanding with that in terms of what they are and what it means to be riding one on pavement and roads, which obviously we can't do at the moment.
And Linda's just commenting just off the back of that as well. So she's seeing more electric scooters ridden around roads in Englefield Green in Runnymede and on the A30 as well on an increasingly regular basis, mostly on road but sometimes on pavements. Isn't this illegal? Yes, it is. We've just identified that. And in any event, it's very dangerous. Is anything being done about it? So the difficulty is that obviously we've only got so many response officers and people out and about, but where we do have officers who are present at that time and able to have that conversation with people, we will be taking a proactive stance on it. That is kind of our operational position. And we would encourage people to report their use through our non-emergency contact lines, either on live chat on our website, through social media, as Alicia's mentioned earlier as well. So that's really, really important. Thank you for your comment there, Linda. Right, so more violent crime in Sunbury Cross. Are we likely to get a permanent police presence to try and regain our streets, please? So Sunbury Cross is in Spelthorne. We don't have a Spelthorne representative with us here tonight, but John, we have seen an increase in our local policing teams over the last few years through both the national government's police uplift recruitment programme, but also here in Surrey we've seen an increase in our policing precept, and that's being put into frontline policing, isn't it?
Absolutely, and together with our Police Now colleagues, which is a different entry route into the police service, my team in Epsom has effectively doubled in size. So, in terms of our capability and capacity to be able to respond to local problems is, significantly increased. So, yes, I would imagine that any local issues that are causing community concerns, there is much more scope now to be able to respond to those effectively.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. A couple of questions about our estate. And by estate, what we mean is police stations, our HQ, and all of that side of things as well. So It's Speed from YouTube is saying that Surrey Police said that Reigate Police Station was going and moving somewhere else. Is this still going to happen? I haven't got anybody from the estates team here, but I can let you know that we do have an estates programme called Building the Future, and part of that is looking at what an estate for a 21st century police force looks like. We're based here at Mount Brown in what is a glorious old manor house. And as beautiful as it is, in reality, it's just not set up for modern day policing. And we know that that's the same with some of our other buildings. So what we've been looking to try and do is to make sure that our estate is fit for purpose. And part of that has been looking at moving our HQ. And yes, Reigate Police Station was going to be closed as part of our Eastern base and would be moving. We've purchased a site in Leatherhead. and our eastern sort of divisional headquarters, which is where Reigate was based, would be moving there as well. Is it still on? Well, we're not due to move until 2024, so there is a lot of road still to go. But I know that we have gone in, and I think we've started clearing some of that site as well. So Reigate isn't going to be closing just yet, and we'll see where we get to with that. So I hope that answers your question there. There's a question about police stations closing in Farnham from Sabrina. It makes us as a community feel less safe, even though we have Guildford Station. But even still, will we be getting a closer station back more local? John, could you talk a little bit perhaps about rationalisation? I appreciate you can't talk about Farnham in particular, but why have we seen some of the sort of the police stations close, and what are we doing about that?
Thanks, Jay. So it's very costly to run, as you've said. A lot of these stations, they can be quite old, as I say, very costly to run, and not necessarily set up, as you said, for modern day policing. What we are seeing is a lot of co-locating with partner agencies. So I can speak for Epsom in that we are based within the council offices and the town hall. And you know that is an ideal location from which to police the borough, and that isn't going to change with the relocation of Mount Brown or the headquarters to Leatherhead. You know, we're still going to have that policing response capability in local boroughs, and that is something that is really you know, taken into consideration when these projects are underway.
And Graham, are you able to come in on that at all?
Yeah, so my former role was Divisional Superintendent for West Surrey, which obviously covers Farnham, so I've got a little bit of knowledge. So just to reassure you, Farnham has got police working out of it. They work in a co-located site with the Fire Brigade, which is in Farnham itself. However, you've got your own policing team, not only neighbourhood officers, but also our colleagues from the neighbourhood policing teams, the response officers, specifically for Waverley, and they will be out in the communities. They work either out of Godalming for Waverley or out of Farnham Fire Station. So you will have officers out there who can respond to you, as well as, of course, your local neighbourhood officers. So the team that John works with in Epsom, Waverley, have had the same increases in numbers of their neighbourhood teams. So you've got your own PCSOs in the community. You'll have officers out every day. So whilst we have rationalised for exactly the reasons that John has mentioned, that doesn't mean the policing has gone. It just means we're doing it in a different way.
Thank you, Graham. That's really helpful. Question from Sue, just back on e-scooters. Have never seen a police officer confiscate them. Have any been confiscated? Yes, we have. They have been confiscated. I know I've seen some down in Guildford, which is sort of where is our closest base down here. I think one of the things that we would want to say, Sue, is that we want to be really careful about how we deal with these things. Sometimes it might be the first time that a rider of an e-scooter has ever had a conversation with a member of police, and we want to know what their lasting impact on us would be. So we have, it's a 4-letter acronym this time. It's about plan. It's about being proportionate. So what we want to make sure is that any interaction that we have with the member of the public, we go through a process of engaging with them, explaining what the legislation says, encouraging people to try and act differently. And if we need to, then we will get to a position of enforcement. Alicia, thinking about that proportionality and being sort of how we engage with members of the public, you're obviously on the front line doing that. What things go through your mind, no matter what you're faced with? What are the things that you have to kind of think about before you sort of engage with someone?
So as you've just said there, it's really important that we create a lasting impact in terms of how we communicate with members of the public. So if this is the first time we've engaged with that particular person, we want to ensure that we're doing the right thing. And as I said earlier, there is still a distinct lack of understanding with the legislation around e-scooters, and we are seeing young people as well. So it's important that we ensure their safety whilst they're riding them, and explain to them why we may have to take action in the future.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've got about 15 minutes left, so just please do make sure that you get your questions in that you've got. David McAdam says, how many specials have you got on Western? I can't give you a specific number, but I can tell you at least one. That will be me. So we'll find a number for you. I'm based out of Guildford, and I will come back to you with a number probably tomorrow, if that's okay, when we engage with our volunteers manager, which would be great. Right, for the coppers in the room. This is from one of our viewers on YouTube, Septonic. For the coppers in the room, what made you choose Surrey Police over other forces? John, I'm going to come to you first because you trained as a special elsewhere, didn't you? And then you moved here as a PC. So why Surrey Police?
Absolutely. So I trained as a special constable down in Devon and Cornwall Police. That's where I went to university. Having said that, I'm from the Surrey area, so I've got really strong ties to Surrey. My family, my father was a Surrey police officer, and so I had that when I was growing up. You know, so I had a really strong tie to the county and to the police service as well within the county. So that was my main reason for choosing Surrey, and you know, I haven't looked back 10 years.
Graham, come to you next.
See, that's an interesting one for me because I'm not from Surrey. I'm a Portsmouth boy, so I'm a Hampshire lad, and but I've been with Surrey for 22 years now. Now I don't look old enough, I know, but I joined when I was 19, and I've been here ever since. And actually, the reality is at the time Hampshire weren't recruiting police officers. Surrey were. I thought it's something I might like to give a try, and here I am 20 plus years later.
Did you have an idea of coming in for a short period of time and you're still here, or?
Well, when I was going to be a professional footballer. I was going to be famous, and here I am 22 years later. So, no, I really had no expectations. It's something I always thought I might like to do, and the opportunity arose, and I've not looked back since. As John, it's a job that I love to do. It has its stresses, it has its challenges, but every day is different. And I still enjoy it now, all these years on.
So, pardon the terrible joke, instead of Copper Barnett, you could have been Chopper Barnett, playing in defence.
I could have been, and that's probably about right as well.
Good stuff. Alicia, you're brand new, shiny and sparkly. Indeed. What is going on? What made you choose Surrey?
So I grew up in Surrey originally, and I really wanted to make a difference with my community. Another thing is that Surrey's quite a relatively small force, and it sounds cliche, but we really are like a family here, and I got welcomed with open arms, quite literally, and my team are really close, and it makes a huge difference coming into work all day and having that support from your team, your sergeants and your inspectors as well.
Amazing, lovely. We are going to start to draw this to a close. We've probably got a couple more questions, and then we're going to be going to our soon-to-be everybody's favourite feature, Dog of the Week, which is genuinely very exciting. Not that we've been saving the best until last, sorry guys. But a couple final questions, probably around youth crime, gang affiliation, schools. John, you mentioned youth engagement officers and that side of things. Speaking about what you're doing in Epsom, I guess, what are you doing around youth and young engagement and that side of things? How can we build a better relationship with young people in the county?
That's a really good question, and it's something that I think we're all trying to strive towards is to develop that that key to really gaining an interest among young people to engage with us. Historically we've always gone into schools. We've had really good engagement with schools. The pandemic has really impacted on that, with obviously the schools being closed for some time and distance learning as well, which is has set us back somewhat. What we're now seeing is we're being, I think, more intelligent in the way we're actually picking up on risk and determining who's at risk of being exploited. So it's about making sure we're getting in with these young people, as I said earlier, an early stage to make sure that we can prevent that abuse and exploitation from taking place, and and really steer them back onto the right path. And something like the police cadet scheme, that's really key. We're expanding at the moment. Really positive work going on with our cadet leaders and a really positive group of young people that potentially otherwise would have been out causing antisocial behaviour. Or similar, and we've managed to push them down a slightly, a really positive path get them engaging with communities and really getting involved, which is really positive.
Yeah, nice one. Thank you, John. Couple of questions or just points from Rebecca about Rebecca Channing on YouTube. Thoughts about the policing in Horsley. We don't see police. We'd like to see more working sort of down the streets and that sort of things, and having a look and checking in Horsley. We will certainly have a chat with the local borough commander for Horsley that covers Horsley, and we'll get a response for you. I haven't got anybody here that I can necessarily do on that, so I just want to make sure that we acknowledge your question, we hear it, and we will make sure that we come back with an appropriate answer. I hope that that is okay. Just having a little look at some of the final questions that we've got here. Are Surrey Police going to enter into a partnership with the Met Police for areas that border London, i.e. Spelthorne? Graham's going to answer this one.
So we do work closely with our colleagues across all the borders, and you'll find it in Epsom as well, won't you? Work really, really closely with the Metropolitan Police. We obviously work closely with Sussex Police on the southern borders of the county, and also with Hampshire. We do joint operations, work really closely with them. We've got methods for sharing our information and intelligence, because criminals and crime and antisocial behaviour doesn't stop because of borders. We might stop at the border with Metropolitan Police Ground, but crime doesn't. We recognise that, so we work really closely with them. We won't be collaborating with them necessarily, as we've gone as far to do with Sussex or with some of our regional activities, but absolutely we work closely with all of our forces, and I know John does with his Epsom team on the borders as well.
John, is there anything you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, so as Mr. Barnett said, we have a very good working relationship with our equivalents over in the Met Police. We do a number of joint operations with them, particularly targeting burglary, cat converter theft is a big issue that we've been working together closely on. And going back to my Tandridge days, we're bordering 3 forces there. And so, it was about having that regular contact with your counterparts and just sharing that information, and that communication is the key, really. Making sure you're dealing with the same individuals from borough to borough. So it's how we target them efficiently. We're not doubling up on things as well.
Selena on Facebook is asking, what relations does Surrey Police have with Sussex Police? So Graham, you just mentioned there about collaboration, and we talked about you being part of a collaborated unit. Could you talk a little bit about collaboration for us?
Yeah, as I said, my role works across both forces. So we collaborate on a number of areas, and that's about efficiencies, it's about best use of resourcing. So we collaborate on operational aspects such as our armed response vehicles, so our firearms resource, on our roads policing resource, but also on some of the other aspects like learning and development and IT, and that's about making best use of the services that are available across both forces. And what it also means is we can support each other. So we were talking about the Derby earlier on, and whilst we didn't require it this year, in a regular year, Sussex may send officers up to support us with the Epsom Derby. In fact, one of the bronze commanders on the late shift this year was one of my colleagues who, whilst she works in Joint Command, she is a commander from Sussex Police. So it's about sharing the resources for the benefit of both counties, not just Surrey, but for both Surrey and Sussex.
Amazing, thank you. We've got a point here from Sabrina on Facebook. I feel children at school should have talks from the police regarding online grooming, as that's a very high crime everywhere. Yes, absolutely. We have youth engagement officers who are going into schools, don't we? And one thing I think just around children in particular. In Surrey, you might have seen in the press recently, we've had some issues with what are known as edibles, cannabis-infused jelly sweets. Our youth engagement officers have been engaging really excitingly, actually, with a school in Guildford, working with year 11 to 13 children to help them come up with their own campaign that we're going to be rolling out across schools and youth venues across the county, highlighting the dangers of drug use, and even surreptitious drug use, I suppose. Guys, it's 5 minutes to go. We've got Dog of the Week. Is it
one of our dogs? Is it one of the dog schools?
Well, it is, absolutely. So Dog of the Week is we're going to open up the kennels. We're going to get to know our four-legged friends and their handlers. Surrey jobs, what our canine colleagues are doing. So that's going to be coming up in just a moment. But just before we wrap up, is there anything that you three would like to say to the public who are watching us tonight about local policing, just from your different perspectives and roles that you've said tonight?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for all of your support over the course of the pandemic in particular. It's been a really challenging period for us in policing, and we know it's been equally as challenging for yourselves. You know, we're all members of the public as well. We've gone through the same challenges, and so, you know, from our perspective and from overseeing the Epsom Borough, you know, the support that we've had from the public has been outstanding. And I don't think that we would have been able to get through it successfully without the ongoing support that we've had, so thank you.
And I would just reiterate that my initial role when we found out about the coronavirus pandemic was to lead on that for Surrey and Sussex, along with a number of other colleagues. And it was a really challenging time. And I genuinely think, as John said, without the support of the public, let's be honest, with some really confusing messages, really difficult messages that were coming out, I don't think we'd have been successful as would. So, yeah, just a thank you to the public, really.
Alicia?
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Our community in Guildford and Western Surrey have been absolutely fantastic, and has got us through these really hard times. And just to say that we are around, policing is obviously ever changing. We're not necessarily on the streets walking around anymore. We are in cars, but we are there. And if you do need us, then of course call 101 and 909 or report it online.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So, guys, we're going to leave you with Dog of the Week. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much to our three guests tonight. I hope you've had a good time. Alicia, thank you so much for interrupting and being with us for the last little bit of time. So, no, please don't apologise. You're doing what you are here to do, which is the best thing in the world. So, we'll be back next Thursday, 6 until 7. We're looking at domestic abuse. We've got some of our partner agencies coming in and hosting for us, which is going to be really exciting. But for tonight, we're signing out, and we'll leave you with our four-legged friends with Dog of the Week.
Hi, I'm Jeff. I'm the operational dog school manager based at Mount Brown in Surrey, and we're internationally recognised all over the world for our training that takes place at these premises here. Our dogs are our partners. Once trained, they live with their handlers and have an operational career of around 8.5 years, helping to keep Surrey safe. We rear and train police and some security dogs here in Surrey for work around the world, and they have some incredible skills. Did you know that as well as dealing with public order situations or chasing after criminals, our dogs can be trained to sniff out explosives, hidden burglars, sums of cash, drugs and firearms? Surrey Police Live's Dog of the Week is our opportunity to open up the kennels, meet the dogs and their handlers, and hear about the jobs that our four-legged friends have been to, and really make the difference in keeping Surrey safe. Next week, you will meet some of our police dogs, and you'll have the opportunity to see how they work and the difference they make to our community.